Hello, hello, everybody coming in. Perfect. He's coming in still. Welcome, welcome, everybody. It's been a bit since I've been on my chat, so I appreciate you guys honoring Megan last time. I was in a long week of training for 8 hours a day, but it was a good training. If you guys could pretty please put your first and last name and email address in the chat box. That way you can receive any follow-ups on the survey to get your certificate later on. And then I'm just going to remind everybody that Kelly's not coming on until 1:20. So I figured we can update you on anything ECPAC. And if anybody had questions because they didn't have time to do the survey, they can put them out here and we can bring them up when Kelly comes on. I know this one is a big one for everybody. I bet everybody's got tons and tons of questions since UPK rolled out. So I figured you would all love this and hopefully get some answers to some questions. We had some good questions in the survey box. So that'll be nice to know the answers to those. A couple of people just came in. If you could please put your first, last name, and email address into the chat box. That way I can send you any updates. The follow-up email, sorry. Anything like that. I have a feeling we're going to have a busy room today, so please bear with everybody. I think a question of the day, because it's been a while and I know most people don't want to say it out loud. You can just put in the chat box if you feel like it. Let's see. Who is ready for fall? And is anybody already decorated for Christmas? Because I've seen, or any holiday, to be honest with you, I've seen so many holiday things in the store already, even Christmas trees. Or anything else you want to talk about? We're just waiting for people to come in. Everybody's coming in. Nothing yet, Chrissy? That works. Taking it slow to come into fall, huh? I do too, Heather. I really want to say summer. And then there's Sheena. Bring on the fall. Ooh, one thing. What did you buy, Bree? Did you get that 7-foot skeleton that everybody's so fascinated with? Nice, Alicia. All Halloween over the weekend. Oh, a nice wreath. That's awesome. Sure, there might be some more people coming in. Just a reminder, I did put it on the email for the chats that Kelly's not coming in until 1:20, so I have a feeling a lot more people are going to jump on that time. I figured this time we will talk about any updates, anything that you may want to know, or if anybody's got any other questions because they did not have a chance to do the survey. I can write those down and ask her when she comes in, or you can wait until she comes in. I did see there was a good amount of questions in there, which was awesome. There was a lot of things that people are having questions about, which I get. And yeah, so I guess I'll start with some updates. Just a reminder to update your provider profile on childcare in Adams County. Megan sends out an email every week for you guys, just to remind you. So that way, those are all up to date when people search for schools to see if they have openings. So that way you don't get 50 billion calls all the time. And then if you are going to the providers in person meetings, so used to be called roundtables a long time ago, they have now moved to a different spot. They're no longer at the C4 in Commerce City. Amanda Benson sent out, excuse me, an updated email of where the new place is located. We found out that a lot of people wanted it a little bit more centralized because Commerce City was a little too far to people to make it in time during nap time at 12:30. So we just wanted to update you on that because we would love to see you all in person so you guys can do some connections and things like that. Let's see. You guys get a quarterly newsletter, and that has a lot of information on it, I know, but we also have our family support team. Hold on, I'm so sorry. Give me one. I apologize, everyone. I have this tickle that won't go away, so it makes me look ridiculous. So I apologize if I have to mute once in a while to cough. No sickness, just a weird tickle in my throat today. Back to the newsletters, there's a portion of it about our family services that we offer because we have a family support team in our C4 building out in Commerce City that gives parents some parenting classes. So those are always good to let your parents know that there's some parenting classes out there. One of them is Lena, where it's talking about language development with their children. There is substance abuse trainings for people who deal with people that are going through substance abuse. Let's see. Sorry, give me one more second. I'm sorry, guys. And then also on our website, we always put up trainings. So if you are looking for a certain type of training, we offer some of them. A lot of trainings now, like EQIT and Pyramid, are going to be on PDIS to find. So it's a little easier, puts every single person that is doing those trainings. If you ever need to figure out EQIT for anybody, it's not just Adams County, it's all the counties that are doing them. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions so far? Oh, you guys can make me talk a lot, huh? Now you're gonna deal with me coughing this whole time. um, let's see. Sorry, guys. Kelly had a meeting before this, so yeah, I wish I could do a shot of whiskey here, Carol. Can't do it when you're working. I have to be later tonight, though. How is everybody doing with UPK? Let's start with that. Let's have a little. You can't take Carol, you would. Let's have an open forum for each other so you guys can support each other. I know some people have had a hard time, some people have had an easy time. Does anybody have some great shortcuts or anything they want to help each other with? What has been the favorite part of UBK right now? How about that? Oh, Heather. That said a lot. I'm sorry. I don't know. Okay, maybe I'm trying to be a positive note on this. Guys, you're killing me here. They're leaving us. Okay, well, but oh, see, Pam's received her first and second payments. Has everybody received their first and second payments yet? Well, that's good. At least payments are making them in. Good, good. That's a positive. You're getting paid. The grants. Have you guys gotten some grants from it? These are making me talk so much. Sorry, it's good for me. Puts hair on my chest, as my dad would say. Carol's applying for a second one.
So, Amanda, are you there? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I was
Yes, I can hear
surprised
you.
that I could apply for a second grant. I ignored it and ignored it and ignored it. And I finally read the email that said we can have the second one. So
That's awesome.
you have not, because you have asked not. This is what I say.
Cool. You there, Carol?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Went on in the back there.
Well, that's awesome that you were able to get the second one.
Hi, Amanda. I have a question too.
Yes.
Since I was moving for my place to go to another area, it's the place is not completely done for the basement. I was asking for the second ones to help me at least to cover one things. It's there denied all the times. I don't know how to get that. I just spend all money for the place for children. It's not for me. They're asking, that's 80% for yourself and 20% for the childcare. But the place that I build it, that's just for the school. How is possible that I'm using for my own? It's all shelves, all table, all chair, all toy. It's when you're done with your work 5 days a week that you're working, it's no way that you go back to sitting on the classroom that you enjoying your times or my family, it's they didn't support me at all for that.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I have nothing to do with any of the grants, to be honest with you. I'm kind of a third party person that just hears what everybody is saying. So you would have to contact the grant people with any questions on the grants. They don't
No,
give
I
me
totally
information.
understand, but the people is on the group, it's they can tell me about that, what kind of project they are doing that they are qualified for the second ones,
Yeah, so the ones that applied for the second one, what are your qualifications and how did you get approved for it?
So I submitted for, sorry.
Go ahead, Chrissy, I'll go after you.
So I applied for the second one. I haven't gotten any word back if it was approved or anything. But there was like a list of things that you could use the grant money for on mine. So it was like you could pick as many of the categories as you wanted. It just couldn't exceed, I think, $6,000 or something.
Yeah, but it's I have to finish completely the bathroom. I have to put it the floor. I have to finish the drywall. I have to make a walkout basement for children to make it easy to go outside. It's not, none of them is gonna be covered for that, But
I think there was a section. I think there was a section on there. You just had to contact them for those bigger projects.
Yeah, but they'll say this 80% for yourself and 20% for children. I sent the picture. Look at this. My school completely different because I work for Westminster College. It's community college. It's after that I opened my own. It's absolutely like a school. It's not home daycare, not babysitting. But they'll say this. No, I don't know. It's no money. It's come on top of the first ones. I said, okay.
So Marie, I don't know about the individual grants. It sounds like you need to talk to the people that are putting on the grant to get more examples of what you can apply for. And it looks like it's due Friday to apply for this grant. But for programs that are currently operating and they have UPK and they also have infant and toddlers, you can apply for the second grant. You can use it for health and safety kind of stuff, furniture, things that would go in your classroom, so like manipulatives or toys. I believe there is a capital request, but that's an additional estimate, like Carol says, and then also a different review process. What's interesting is that there's also a spot for you to ask for money towards developing curriculum or purchasing curriculum or assessments. And that's the thing that I was super excited about, to use some of the money, hopefully, to enrich our curriculum, knowing that the UPK standards will be, we're eventually going to have to go through a Shines rating or something. So hopefully we can use some of that money to get ready for that.
All right. Thank you so much for your information.
Thank you for helping out, everybody. You know a little bit more than I do, and I apologize I don't, but you guys are more in it than I am at the moment. So thank you for supporting each other.
Thank you.
Well, it looks like Kelly just joined us. Hi, Kelly. Thank you for coming on again.
Hi.
It's been a fun one, I hear. Everybody's so excited. They've been through a month of it already. So I'm sure everybody's got a bunch of questions. I know I sent you a few. I had a couple more that came in late, so I can bring those up to you too. But I will hand it over to you. I made you co-host, and yeah.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so Amanda had sent me a few questions that came from the field. So I thought I would just talk through those, share a few resources, and then if there's any others, you can just send them my way and we'll just go from there. So one of the questions was, is there anything with the way UPK runs the matching enrollment system that will be different starting for 2024? Great question. I hope so. We all hope so. So we're in conversation with CDEC and the LCOs in regards to trying to have some changes. Do I have any defined changes to give you yet? I don't. I do know that there is going to be some differences on how they manage IEP students. There was talk about maybe having IEP students matched to providers who are AUs, who are the authorized agencies that can serve those needs prior to the matching system. So there's some of those conversations happening. Hopefully we will see more changes than that as we launch for the 2024-5 school year. Anything to follow up there? Okay. Next one was, are we still getting matches? Yes, we are running on weekly rounds. So every Monday, there will be provider matches that go through the system. If you have open spots, if you don't have open spots, you may still be getting those automated notices, but you're already full. So on Monday, they run the lottery, and on Friday, families get notices. So if you have open spots, make sure you're checking the system. They're running very quickly weekly right now. As well as if you have open seats and you have families that are interested, we were very recently given guidance that we can place those students to get them into that seat right away. So if you have no waiting list, open seats, and you have a family standing in your front office, give us a call, me or Audrey, which is 303-487-2850 or 303-487-2851, and let us know. Hopefully we can answer and help you while the family is standing there. If not, leave a detailed message. We can make those placements directly, so that we can, yeah, I can put those numbers in the chat, Amanda, no problem. So that if you have a family standing in your front office at this point of the school year, they're allowing LCOs to make those direct placements. So that's brand news, hot off the press just in the last day. So next question was, as a provider, I keep receiving these emails, I have a match, but when I go on there, shows that it's the same kids. Yeah, they send out a generic message to everybody. It's happening to families too, that they still have 10 selections and they don't have a match. It still sends a matching was done, check the system message. If you have no open seats, you can disregard it. If you have open seats, I would definitely continue to check it. Any questions there? It's just an automated message. Next one I got was, I'm curious about how the standards will work next year. Does anybody know the answer to this one? Okay, so here's a resource I definitely want to share. I'm going to drop this in the chat, but I'm also going to share my screen real quick. CDEC is in the process of reviewing draft quality standards. This is the time to use your voice. So on the CDEC webpage, and I just dropped this link into the chat, is the draft quality standards. And there's also a way for you to give input and to read all of the standards. They are not a Shines rating. They are a couple of different buckets. The webinar slides in here go through and explain exactly what the draft standards are. They are only in draft. They are seeking feedback from providers. So please take a chance to review this webpage and speak up when it comes to making sure that you get your voice heard if you like them or don't like them. The slide deck will go through how they got here. They did use somebody to help create the draft standards, a consultant out of Virginia. A lot of it is around creating resource banks for providers. And then also there's no high level for teacher qualifications. I know that's been a big concern. This one pager right here is probably the best when it comes to the at a glance at really understanding the draft standards. There's 3 different buckets, if you might. There's instructional practice, healthy development, and then family and community engagement. This is designed where it goes through and explains what the target is, and then it gives the expectation as well as the indicator. And it is these 3 things at a glance right now. So this is the entirety of the draft standards. The instructional practice is basically you could select from a menu of curriculums. We don't have that menu yet, but it does will give you a menu and that you have to have 8 hours of training on that curriculum. And then with the healthy development, it's about making sure that there's policies and processes in place. Most of you already do most of this already. Things like making sure there are a resource available to families who want a dental screening. So in the UPK legislation, there was a lot of providers that were concerned that you would have to start giving dental screenings. No, you just need to give family resources for a dental screening. So there'll be some development of resource banks as well. And then a lot of policies and procedures around family and community engagement. So there is a draft in place. Please make sure you take a look at this website and web page. It is definitely worth taking a few minutes to review it all. Sorry, I lost my tab. I have so many open. Here we go. And then follow, you can take a look at the FAQ. It's pretty good, as well as keep track of what's going on with it. This preliminary stakeholder input report is where you want to make sure you put some input in there as well. Any questions on that one? Okay. I'm curious. Oh, next question was, are we able to add slots? Offering our current full day UPK families a discount, or currently our program only offers UPK to new families? So if it's all 4-year-olds get UPK. So you are allowed to edit your slots if you need to. CDEC's trying to get those changes to calm down. What they are seeking is to have providers basically list however many 4-year-olds you want in your system or in your program year after year. For example, if you have a mixed age classroom and you're holding 3s and 4s in that classroom, and right now it's a classroom that has licensed for 20, you gave 10 to UPK, you have 10 3-year-olds, but a 3-year-old left, you can add a 4-year-old UPK slot. So you can add slots in programs that are already built. When it comes to closing programs, CDEC does review it. It would need to be a reason like I lost staff and had to close that entire classroom. At this point, there's a lot of work to replace those families. So if you're reducing seats, that's a different procedure. But if you're adding a few seats because you didn't get as many 3-year-olds in what you listed, I can do that for you if it's the same program option. Any questions there? Okay. Is there anything changing with the UPK runs with matching? I already kind of talked a little bit about that one. We hope so. We know it's been a little bumpy, so we're working on trying to get some of that feedback up the chain and make some adjustments before we roll out for 24-25. I hope to keep you updated on that. And I think that was the last one you sent. Amanda, what else did you have? What other questions came in?
I had one that says, will we need to turn attendance in?
So your provider agreement says you'll keep those records, and that you will report if a family leaves. So in other words, they're not going to ask for them unless something pops up. But if they ask for them, you better have them ready. So you're supposed to keep your attendance records, is all the agreement says. If you do that on paper, do that online, as long as you have records, that's the way the agreement reads. What they're looking for, honestly, and what you want to be careful with is that if a family leaves your program, that you're reporting that quickly, because the family is likely going to another program and trying to get the funding over there. So if they find you're taking funding for a kiddo who left and is trying to take a seat somewhere else to get the funding, it throws up a yellow flag. So just make sure you're reporting when families leave your program in the portal and unenroll them. And you have the ability to unenroll students from your end.
I had a question that was a licensing question, so I'm just going to answer it from a licensor because there was nothing you would have part in, so I didn't give you this question. One of the survey's questions was, is there a way to ask licensing for a few extra slots just for UPK? It would only be 9 to 12 Monday through Friday. This is from an actual licensor. I made sure we got the clear wording for whoever sent that. If a childcare center is needing extra slots, they will need to put in a change of capacity application. If it is a family child care home, they will need to complete an application for change of family child care type, large. Any program needs to follow what capacity is currently on their license. Please, and that was it. Sorry, she was going to say, please let me know if you have any other questions. So whoever put that in, you still have to follow what your room ratio is already. If you want to add more slots, you're going to have to do a change of license, basically. Those were the only other questions I had outside of that survey.
Okay, and let's open it up to anybody on the page today or on the meeting today. Any other UPK questions I might be able to help answer at this time?
Yeah, I have a question. So our current children that we have now, when they apply and we view the application, it says full-time. So we assume full-time is 30 hours, right? So we offered those parents the full-time spots of 30 hours, and then we got paid for 15 hours. So now we have to charge our parents for the remainder of it because they obviously came to us because we were promoting that we're giving full-time hours. So is there an easier way for us to find out before we even accept the children? Because that full-time is pretty deceiving because it doesn't give you the 30 hours, it gives you only the 15 hours. And so we have other kids that have enrolled in our program, and so we got paid again and they're only 15 hours. So then we lost more kids. So is there a step that we can take before that happens so that we're not losing money?
Yeah, so you're going to want to use your provider review period wisely. So if you get matches on Monday, that's your time to reach out to the family and explain, hey, you currently applied for a program. We run a full day program. The way that Bridge Care is designed is parents are intended to be shopping for their care need, regardless of their UPK funding benefit. So if they're looking for extended care because they're dual working family, they should be able to select that and use the UPK funding benefit as a tuition offset. But families don't always know that, right? So use your provider review period to really explain it to them and say, you are currently listed as a match for my full day program. There is a way to download in the system in your matching tab. There's three little dots on the right, a spreadsheet of all of your matches that will show how much they are getting for additional hours, right? So if they're getting additional hours, they'll show on the spreadsheet, and you can say to the family, I see that you have a 15-hour benefit. This program runs for 30, therefore you will have a tuition for hours 16 to 30, and that rate is, right? Explain it to them. And then if it's not a great fit, then they can just hit decline before you go through the whole enrollment process, and then you'll see a new match the very next week. But you do want to inform the families so that they can hit decline if that's not what they were looking for, and then help the family. If you're really looking for a completely free program, you probably want to find a half-day spot. If you have one at your own site, maybe it's going to be a smart switch and we can just switch them over to half-day seat at your own site, or they might need to contact me to unlock their application in order to put more half-day seats on there. A lot of families are like, well, actually, I do need full day, right? They just wanted it free. but they didn't qualify for free full day. They also may qualify for free full day and they just did their application wrong. So we could unlock their application as well. But really use that provider review period smart and make sure that you are explaining what tuition and what hours would be to families so that they can hit decline if it's not going to work and you can just get a new match right away. Does that help, Jessica?
It does. So my problem is that parents are saying that the way the information was sent out to them is that they are under the impression that it's 30 hours no matter what. And so I explained to them that that's something that they have to look at the application, things like that. So that's where we've had a couple new families come in, and the way it's promoted out to parents, to the state, is saying that they can get more hours than what they actually get. So that's the problem. But I mean, on my end, I totally understand that part about like looking at the report and stuff. It's just for our parents that we have coming in. Our site is listed as full-time or an extended care, and they're getting matched with us when it's only 15 hours that they're qualified for.
So there are a few documents to help in that conversation if you have a family that's really pushing back as well. And this is a confusion that's happened across the system, right? A lot of families truly thought this was actually free childcare, right? And they are not understanding that it's not free extended day, it's just the free preschool program. So a couple of different documents have gone up. I just put the chat in the chat, the link. But if you go to, I'm going to share my screen one more time. If you go to the CDEC website, they've done a really good job in the last couple of weeks, adding some really great resource documents here that will help with families. And we've had to pull these out for a few families probably once a day lately. So if you go to the provider, universal preschool, go to provider information. These participation provider guidance has been really helpful when it comes to explaining tuition to families if they're using more hours than what UPK is covering. So you can pull up these documents very slowly, apparently, and it'll go through these two: funding or payment schedule. The one under funding explains a little bit more for the provider, but it also gives a lot of detail when it comes to, sorry, it's loading really slow. So this is more intended for the provider, but it will give you some documents to lean back on when it comes to, hey, you know, I'm actually supposed to get the entire 6,000. No, families get 3 free hours, and that might be a different rate at one program versus another based on your tuition. The allowable uses does explain to families that the UPK reimbursement rate does have benefit for both provider and families. So the families are given 3 free hours, not every single dollar. So it does go through and explain that, yes, you can use some of that on the reimbursement rate for the true cost of care, meaning you could use some of that for teacher, for cost of providing PDs, things like that. So I've had to use this a fair amount with families where they're like, no, they're not giving me the every single dollar. And then also the other document I have found very useful in this scenario has been the payment schedule. And the reason is there's a billing blurb on here that makes it really clear to families. So it'll say that if a child attends 15 and is awarded the standard 15, their tuition should be fully covered. Providers can charge families for any hours exceeding their UPK award. And it even gives the example. If you're attending 25 hours a week, you're given 15, then you can charge them tuition for hours 16 to 25 based on your published rates. So these two paragraphs have really helped in that conversation. And a lot of times it takes you out of the conversation because they're like, you're doing it wrong. No, you were awarded 15 hours and here's the CDEC document saying how I can bill families and here's how I'm allowed to use it. But yes, there is, it does, I have had hundreds and hundreds of conversations with families having to explain it. So we do have to have some patience because they're just confused. They're hoping, they thought it was free for everything. And it's just, that was a little too good to be true. It's not completely free for childcare, right? It's just the free preschool.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions from the group?
Kelly, how were those factors? Were any of those factors that they qualified for the extended hours, were those verified anyway?
Good question. So the parents have to attest to those factors. So one of the things that has been happening is families maybe didn't want to put a payment stub into the application way back in, September or June of last year. And now they're finding, wait a second, because I didn't click that box and upload a payment statement and I'm a bilingual family, I just only got 15 hours. So in those cases, the families can go back in and update their application and add the payment stub, check that box, and we can unlock it for them. The state is awarding families who are updating their applications right now. They are blanket awarding all of them until the funding runs out. We have not heard the funding's run out yet. So if you have a family that's saying, I actually have 2 qualifying factors, I should be getting 30 hours, check their application. They may not have filled it out right because they didn't want to do a payment stub. There is a third-party company, Metrics, that is doing spot checks of all of the applications, and they are being awarded. So not every single application has been combed through, but they're doing random spot checks based on the demographics of most areas. So it is being checked. It's just not every single application is being checked.
Well, I was just thinking more on the other end. So like we have a family that qualified for the 30 hours, but they marked that they are homeless, which they are not homeless.
So the definition of homeless can be interpreted a fair amount, right? You might have 2 families living under the same roof. That actually is the definition of homeless. So if they are living with grandma and grandpa, that is sometimes under the definition of homeless. So sometimes those circumstances, they're actually living under a roof, but they're living in a scenario that is not their ideal scenario. That does count under the definition of homeless.
Okay, so even for your UPK, because I know when we were in CPP that counted, but when we read through the UPK definition for homeless on there, the application, it did not say that they can do that.
I haven't touched that one. I think if a family feels like they're homeless, I haven't pushed back on it because there are so many different definitions, especially under County Vento. So
because I'm just thinking, I'm like, we know they are not. And, here they got the 30 hours when, like we have other families that clearly probably could have used the 30 hours.
Well, I hear you. My son's best friend is by definition homeless, and they live in a beautiful home, but they have 3 generations living in the home, and it's actually not the family's choice to be living in their basement.
Yeah, and I understand that, but like in this situation, we just know it's not that, that shouldn't have been marked, and they got that for that.
There has been a couple of times where things have popped up in different circumstances. For example, they lied on their birthday. There have been a few of those where you go to check the records and find out that the family filled out the birthday differently so they could get the funding benefit. And that's the scenario where they would withdraw the application and say, I'm sorry, you don't qualify. So if those are the scenarios where you're attesting to that they live in Colorado and the birthday, those are the ones I'd be worried about, Heather, because you're the one attesting to that.
All right.
There's a question in the chat. Who do you reach out to? We do have an Adams County contract with Metrics, who is running as a help desk. If use any provider or family, especially a parent, edit of their application, if they reach out to UPK at adcoconnect.org, they'll unlock that application for them pretty quickly, and then they can update it. The other thing that happens if you have a family who's updating an application, the award isn't immediate. So each month with the data pool on the 15th, they see who has now added a second qualifying factor. Those are reviewed and then awarded. So it's not an immediate award, but it is coming right now for all of them when they update it.
So you said, just to clarify, that if a family were to realize that they didn't submit their income for whatever reason, they can go back in there, and as long as there's still money, they might be awarded, they might not, right? What if like in February, let's say one of our family becomes homeless, or something happens in their family that they need that extra care? Is it just, again, they can apply, and if there's money, they'll get it? If not, but is there like a certain time that the applications can't be looked at again?
It's when the money runs out. So they are awarding until the funds are, and it's a finite pool of funds with the way the legislation and the taxes were drawn down. So until those funds are drawn all the way down, they'll continue to award. But yes, if a family, their circumstances changes in February, yes, they can go in and update it. I just wouldn't guarantee it to them. I'd let them know we can apply, and as long as there's funding available, you should be getting it. Just don't guarantee anything to the family until the state awards it. Any other questions from the group?
I do. So I know this is the way that the system is set up. So we get matched with the family, we contact the family, then the family has to go in and accept us, and then we can enroll them. On our side of the provider, I don't know for next year, but like you said, if there's something that we can put in, like that is kind of a extra, like it would be so much easier for us to be able to do it ourselves, like in there and say, hey, I'm gonna match them, because what happens is parents don't answer their phone. And so for us two children, I couldn't get to them before the 15th of September. So then they couldn't match it until afterwards. So we won't get that payment until the other time. So because, people's phone numbers change, or they just don't pick up the phone, or so is that something that will be looked at? I know you had talked about that they're looking at like to change some stuff for next year, or however, is that something we can input in that, like kind of suggestions about like how to help with that process?
I have already, especially exactly what you're saying. So I've been really loud in saying it's too many steps for families, and they get lost amongst all the different steps, right? So step 1 is fill out your UPK application. Step 2, select 5 to 10 providers. Step 3, accept your match. Step 4, contact your provider. Step 5, complete their. So my feedback has been, and I'm not alone. There's a group of us, actually a group of Metro LCOs that have had pretty loud feedback on there's too many steps, you're losing families because they're getting lost in this. It's not just a 2-step process. Do your UPK app, do your enrollment app with the provider. There's like 10 steps really, if you break it down on all the different things they're going to do before they finally get a seat. Now, right now, Jessica, if you have a family standing there, I can skip a lot of stuff and hit accept for them. So if you have open seats and you aren't able, let me put those phone numbers in for you right now. This is Audrey. She's my admin assistant. She manages the phone line here at our main office. She's usually at the desk most of the time. If you call that number and somebody's standing in your front office and you have open seats, we can circumvent 5 steps and hit accept for them. So we can place them and hit accept for them at this point of the school year. So the reason why they're allowing that is because we've been really loud, and that you've lost a lot of families along the process, and they're showing up in front offices just looking for help. So if you have a family in your front office that needs help, give us a call. As long as there's not a wait list, which we can see, or 10 families looking for 1 seat, we can direct place and just hit accept for families at this point in the school year. We're hoping that their CDEC hears that they're losing families with the multi-step process. I don't think it'll become 1 step. I don't think they will suddenly allow just a single accept from providers, but I think they are going to figure out how to reduce the number of steps families have to go through.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I'm more worried about the families who never finished the process and got lost. So we're going to be doing some data scrubbing on our end from reports out of the system to try to follow up with those families that maybe didn't get seated, but started an application and figure out what happened to them. And we've been working through a lot of those. We had a list of about 1,100 families just a couple weeks ago. And as we dove into them, we found a lot of them were duplicates, a lot of them withdrew. A lot of them thought it was going to be completely free. And when they came to realize it was only 3 free hours, they decided not to. And then we found another group who did get lost, and we helped most of those. So we continue to do some of that data scrubbing as well to try to get families seated for you too.
We are still getting calls that from families that they have been placed with us and they haven't been placed with us, but they are under the assumption that they have been.
You know, I think I've heard that before where you're like, huh? And you look at it. I believe that families are, there's a small group of them. And to be quite honest, I think there's a lot of language cleanup that could happen in the application, right? So when you make 5 selections, when families go in and they get nervous and they go back the next week and look, there's this misconception that they may be placed in all 5 centers, even though you might have been their 3rd choice, and they get to choose which of the centers they're going to. So there's a little bit of a disconnect when it comes to, you put 5 choices, you will get a single placement. So sometimes I'm hearing families where they have the 5 selections and they think they get a choice of which one.
Okay, because yeah, we keep getting these phone calls and we're like, no, we don't even have any slots. And they're like, yeah, we've been placed with you. We're like, no, you haven't.
And so I would ask them, when they look at your site, what is the status listed on the right-hand side of the application?
That's probably a lot for them because they are super confused.
Yeah.
Almost every parent that we have had is really lost on this whole process.
Like I said, I think there's a lot of help with the language, and we're working on it as LCOs and really driving the point home of, you know, saying standby on a status is very confusing to families because standby makes it feel like, hey, I could choose, you know, what does standby mean? There's no definitions of the statuses, especially if it's a dual language family. Some of the translations on some of the statuses can be confusing.
Yeah.
So yes, there's been a lot of trying to kind of talk them through, well, you have 5 selections, it should say match. That's what you're looking for. And there is a push notification of you have a match to review.
Yeah, even on a provider end, all of those where they are placed, match, accepted, like that has all been super confusing just for us to make it through. So yeah, the parents are really confused.
I have a question. If there are families that are looking for spaces, how do they know that we have spaces at our particular site?
Great
Do they
question.
have to cold call or just randomly drive across town until they find a place?
Great question. We are also, as LCOs, pushing, there is a feature that eventually will be turned on that will show how many seats are open at each site. We are asking that feature be expedited and prioritized because right now the way to do it is to call me and we have to walk through their 5 selections and figure out which ones may have seats. UPK at adcoconnect.org will also do that with the family. If they put 5 selections and all 5 are full, then they're really confused. And there's a lot of full providers right now. You can also update your profile to say we still have open seats just on your front page. That is another thing I've been suggesting. Or our full day program is currently full. We have open seats in half day PM. So I would also put some descriptions in your profile to help with that. Will families read it? Maybe not, but at least it can kind of help get to that. You can also call that 2851 or the UPK at ADCO Connect and we can go through it. It does take probably a half an hour on the phone with families really looking things up one by one and trying to figure out, well, that provider's already full. No, that's what I want. They're right here. I'm like, well, I understand, but they're full as full, right? And there's a lot of misconception about, no, I put it on my application, so it let me choose it. Yes, you can add it, but it's really, they're full. You're going to get waitlisted. So let's find 5 viable choices that have open seats. So, but they can reach out to us to go through that. Tiffany asked, what would she do about families that keep getting rematched to us and do not reply? Great question. Let's go ahead and get those families out of your roster so that you can get kiddos who will actually take the seat. So originally CDEC said that as long as you have had multiple contacts with the family where you have documented that you've reached out to them a few times and it's been more than a week since they accepted match, and they're not coming in to finish your paperwork, then you can reach out to me and we can withdraw the application. I do, as soon as you call me and say I have a family that's not responding, I'm going to ask, did you put it in print, and send them an email saying your application will be withdrawn if you don't respond by end of business. I've made multiple contacts. The reason for that, it's really important, is to cover yourself, is because as soon as I withdraw the application, they get no seat. So we need it documented somewhere that somebody made an attempt. And that would be your burden to document it. And so that if the family calls me back the next day and says, my seat just got given up, I can pull that up for them and say the provider made multiple attempts. It looks like you were non-responsive. And they tried to reach out to you on this date and this date. I do have that in an email. Let's open a new application. So I do want you to put that in print. But if it's been more than a week since acceptance, not from placement, there's a big confusion. So you see placements before the family does. So placements happen from Monday through to Friday. Family gets the match notice on Friday. They have to hit accept. That's when the family knows they have a match. So if it's been more than a week from acceptance, I would immediately let the family know as soon as they hit acceptance, you have a week to complete my enrollment processes so that we can seat you and get you started. And here's your anticipated start date. So give them a deadline. And then if they, halfway through the week, you haven't heard from them, send them another email and you should come in and complete, make a phone call. I called you on this date, you didn't answer. And then say, you've been non-responsive, or I've reached out multiple times. And then I can go ahead. You can just forward me the thread and I'll know, and we'll just pull it out. Or you can forward the thread to UPK at ADCO Connect saying, please withdraw this non-responsive family.
What if there was no email? Because we had that on a couple families, like there was no email or the wrong email they put in.
Yeah, that's the other thing we're asking, is to make that email and phone number required, right? How are they getting any notices? I've had a family whose email and their phone number are completely wrong or so how are they getting the message? It's your due diligence. If it's not an email, make it a phone call and document you called on this day. And if it's a full voicemail, document I called, wasn't able to leave a message, document it, and then just send me the thread. I tried these 3 times and I've gotten no answer. So you don't have to hold an open seat for a family who's non-responsive. Let's get those seats filled with kids who are going to show up.
Okay.
Thanks for that. I do have a follow-up question. Talking about getting seats filled, who do I contact in order to maybe change my profile? Because right now we have extra seats, but right now we're just a full-time program, but we wanted to maybe do extended hours. So I know we talked about this maybe in the past, but is it your email or is it the UPK email?
So the UPK at ADCO Connect is essentially my office. So it's just metrics managing all of the incoming requests. If they aren't able to do it, they escalate it to me right away. So you can use the UPK at ADCO Connect email for everything, for families, for you. But yes, if you're looking to add seats for a program that you don't already have, in other words, you have everything listed as full day, but you want to add extended day seats, that's a request I have to submit through CDEC and takes a little bit of time. If you're looking to add more full day seats and it's a program option already built on your profile, I can do that for you pretty quickly.
So what it would be is basically changing my full times or full day seats to extended day. So basically
for all your current students?
Probably, because I feel like, we're not getting, we still have plenty of seats open. So it might as well just maybe change it to extended day to see if we get matches that way.
Yeah, so you and I can do that, Tiffany. You have my book a time link. That's the other thing I offer to providers pretty regularly. I've been pretty scheduled because I was out of town for a couple of days, but we can find a time with the book a time link where we can go through and do it together pretty quickly, Tiffany. Let me drop that link in the chat as well. Cool. So the book of time is intended for providers. You put a meeting right on my calendar. It's a Zoom meeting and we can go through some of those nuances together one-on-one. I'm also hosting regular office hours as things come and change. I hosted 3 last month. I'll host a minimum of 1 every month, but the book a time you can always use, and it is intended for you as the provider to be able to capture my attention and have a meeting with me immediately with a time that works for you. And I'll drop that in too.
Great, thank you so much.
Of course.
Kelly, I had a question for you.
Yeah.
I know they're adding new features to the UPK website portal on Bridge Care. Is there ever going to be a time where they're going to connect with the Adams County Child Care?
Gosh, I hope so.
Didn't know if you knew anything updated for that, because that would be nice to connect them all in one spot.
It is in the long-term plan, but what that time frame is, I don't know. So they do know that a lot of councils have their own, and that's and been a request from the very beginning. So whether that's year 2 or year 3 is what I don't know. So it is in the vision, just where in the vision and how far out that vision is, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, my book of time isn't going through on the chat, right? Amanda, if I send you, okay, can you send it out to the group?
Yep. I always do a follow-up email, so that's perfect.
Okay. If you need to lower seats, I can do that very easily as long as there's not kids already attached to the seats. If there's kids already attached to the seats, it becomes a lot more complicated, and sometimes I have to involve CDEC in the conversation if we're truly displacing families. If you have open seats with no kids attached, no placements, I can delete them, and we always want to do that prior to the next lottery, Chrissy, because then you might have kids attached to them. So if you have, I can do that with my permissions as long as there's no kids attached pretty quickly.
Yeah, they're just open seats. And I do have one person on the list, but with those seats. So there's one person on who I just got matched with. But I don't have any open spots, because the spots that I did have opened technically are those kids who don't want to do the UPK application.
Okay, so let's do a meeting, me and you, but prior to Monday, to make sure we get you taken care of. So if it's a placement and not a match yet, I have more availability to move it around because the family isn't aware that they have a placement.
Right. Okay. I don't know why people don't want free money, but apparently we have a handful of them who don't want anything associated with it.
Well, and the other thing I do want to say is that this has been a new system for all of us, but especially for families and when they have had a first kiddo, they have no idea where to go for first steps. So if you have a family who's in your front office and really doesn't know what to do, I'd pull up the UPK application right there and try to place them right then and give me a call and see if we can get them into the accept mode right away, instead of sending them to go do the UPK application.
A couple of them I've handed it. I'm like, we can come in my office. I will walk you through it. I will help you do it. And a lot of them just don't want, they're like, we don't want our name in the system. And I'm like, pretty much all you have to do is give your name, a phone number, email address, and birthday, pretty much. So, and
there's also a misconception, like I won't qualify. So it's like, no, it's universal. Everybody qualifies.
Yeah, that's what I've said. It's just free. Your 15 hours is free. They will just cover it. So you save all this money, and they're just like, we'll just pay the regular tuition. And I'm like, hey, well, I guess. So.
And CDEC would want you to list all of the 4-year-old seats. So if it's a 3-year-old paying private pay, of course, no problem. But what they don't want is, and there's going to be an exception to the rule, as there always is, but we would want to bring that exception up to make sure you have permission to, if you have, 16 seats in a classroom and 14 of them are getting a UPK funding benefit, but 2 of them are paying privately full cost, that can throw a flag up to CDEC because they want you to list all of them the same.
Right.
And honestly, if I was a mom, I'd be like, wait a second, I'm paying how much and you're paying how much?
Yeah, I don't know. And then I do have one other question. So I have a family who, when they first applied, they have an IEP. and they got matched to the district school. So they scrapped that application and did not put that they had an IEP so they could come to our school, which we accepted them because we do accept IEPs. They did get the full 30 hours, but I don't know if that messes with funding because the application that is accepted with us doesn't show their IEP.
Yeah, great question. That's always happened, right? Maybe a family has speech services and they do some outside speech therapy through their insurance, and they would rather be an extended day program based on their working schedules and do that than to be at the school district for half day, right? That's always happened in our industry. We know that. The concern is if it's a student that you truly can't meet their needs, and it's
we're fine with that, but I just didn't know if funding wise, since their UPK application doesn't state that they have an IEP, if it's different or something.
So the technical answer is that it is true that the 15 hours is intended to support the IEP. That is written into rule. The reality of our current scenario is that they're not diving that deep. They're not going to pull away those hours right now, but it could happen in the future. So I would just let the family know the way that the rules are written, because I'm not giving those services. It could be pulled back at some point, but until we cross that bridge, I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the other things that's come up a lot with special education students is families are confused and think that they could get services at a private program. Making sure that those families are clear and understanding that private programs don't always deliver services unless you're contracted with your local AU, and that you aren't able to meet that IEP. Usually that goes through the school district. They might tell you the school district is full. School districts have to take students with IEPs and they will find a placement for them. Child find teams have the ability to directly place students into their classrooms where the lottery won't place them. So if they're really struggling to get a school district spot that will serve their IEP needs and they tell you they were full, they just need to go through Child Find and the AU can directly place them.
So Kelly, with Child Find, they're really behind right now. So there's a lot of kids waiting for those diagnoses.
Well, if they've already have an
Or
IEP, then
IEPs.
it could be a direct reach out to the special education coordinator in that local school district instead. So if they already have an IEP, they can go straight to the school district coordinator who can place them.
And then if they're waiting for them to finally get an IEP, we just have to be on the waiting list for those kids.
Yeah, yeah. And there are a higher volume with UPK that we are seeing. So those scenarios are popping up a lot. So the families do need some coaching of, yes, you will need to go through Child Find. I do want to tell you, thank you to everybody who is a UPK provider. We know it hasn't been smooth. It has been a rocky rollout. I appreciate your diligence and sticking with it tremendously. While none of these have been my decisions, we've kind of been in this together. So thank you for hanging in there and doing it for families, because it does make a difference on all of their pocketbooks and is something that is pretty monumental that we're able to do it. So I appreciate that you've been through the storm, and hopefully this is the hardest it ever gets, and every year gets a little bit better. So just a big thank you from my heart, really.
I had one other question about IEP students for next school year. If we have kiddos that are currently in our program that are 3 but will be turning 4, and we're concerned about an IEP and they're going through the Child Find process, is it easier for them to get the IEP first and then apply for UPK? Or we would want to push them to do that IEP process sooner rather than later and not wait until March, let's say, of next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there is a long wait list to get an appointment at a lot of places right now. And one of the nuances that they are looking at adjusting is letting the AUs place them prior to lotteries. So that there isn't such confusion in the system from families. So it's more of an opt-out if they don't want to go to a school district versus an opt into any program and not understanding that they're not getting services at private sites. So it's kind of a shift.
because yeah, current families that we have, there's one that's specifically going through the child find process. If the outcome doesn't give them the school that they want, they'll just decline the IEP and stay with us, which we'll have to cross that bridge, but it just seems like a recipe for disaster for individuals, depending on the needs of the individual child.
Yeah, it is one of those case by case scenarios. We've always had families who've done that based on their working schedules and needs, maybe not for the student's needs. So if it truly is a scenario where the student needs more than you can offer and it's not an okay match and coaching the family isn't working, you can loop one of us in to see if we can help that family. What we don't want is a horrible match where the families have put them in a center just based on their working need and not for the student's right choice. If it really isn't a good fit for the provider. For example, I had one program that was a high need student that they had no ability to care for in a wheelchair with lots of feeding needs, including a feeding tube, where the provider they truly couldn't, but the family just wanted the longer hours. Those are the kinds of scenarios you need to throw across my bow, and I'll loop CDEC in and we'll start those conversations. It unfortunately can happen. Typically, parents want what's the best placement for their students. Sometimes survival. Maybe we can find them a full day spot in a local school district, things like that, but I can work through some of those things.
So hopefully we can get the IEP solidified before January when the new applications come in. Okay, that's what I was hoping.
Yeah. So we don't have an exact date for the launch of 24-25. I think CDEC is in the midst of kind of hearing all this feedback, trying to figure out what next steps are and what's reasonable to make changes for the launch of 24-25 and what may be long-term versus short-term, what kind of quick fixes they can implement versus really trying to look at some of these bigger picture issues. We've heard everything from November 30th, which is when they launched for providers to sign up last year. So that would make sense if it was launched for providers to sign up again. It is an annual contract. So that would make sense. They would open it in December with it to open to families in January. That lines up with last year, but that's the last dates I've heard bounced around. Nothing's been final.
Could a site opt out for next year if they didn't want to, since it's year-to-year contract?
Yep.
Hoping they don't, but I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Well, and it's a business decision, right? So there are definitely families who are shopping only for UPK providers. There's also families who are shopping for elite providers that are, of the highest tier who maybe don't, take the UPK funding benefit. And when you look at those tuition rates, then the UPK funding benefit doesn't make sense for them. So it is a business decision and up to the providers year over year. I do have a calculator that goes through the reimbursement rate and how that works out for like hours 16 to 25. It is actually pretty generous reimbursement rate when you really shake out the math. It is in your benefit as long as you're not charging more than like $2,500 a month. It is actually in your benefit rate. I see some faces to take the UPK funding benefit. I will say there are providers that are passing the entire savings through to the families. That is your choice as well, but you don't have to. So if you would like to talk offline and look at some of the math together, I'm happy to do that as well. Well, Amanda, I'll send you the link with a couple of the resources I put up, as well as my book a time button out to everybody. And then if there's any other questions, I'm always available. Feel free to reach out. I try to make myself readily available, especially for providers more than families. Hopefully we can send a UPK at adcoconnect.org. They will be escalated to me if they really need it. But if I'm talking to you, I might be helping 120 families at your center versus the single family that the help desk can maybe support. So I do bend over backwards to make sure I'm available to providers. So if you need anything, please feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. We appreciate your time, and doing some questions, going through the first month of it or so. And I thank everybody else for bringing up some great questions, actually, I feel like, and spending some extra time today. So thank you everybody for being here, and thank you for being so sweet with the questions. And I know it's been a little rough, but that's okay. We're getting through it. We will get there. You're doing great hosting it. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great Tuesday.
Thank you.